I call the meeting of the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. Today's date is August 1st. Wait, right there. Thanks, Roy. The time is 5:15 p.m. Nikki, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst,
Here.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Rollins,
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang. Here. And Commissioner Wright is going to be absent today.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda today? Hearing none. The floor is now open for a public request. If you would please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes, please. Anybody online? Thanks, Greg. Remind
There are no requests for online.
Okay.
I have one to read into the record. This is on behalf of Raul Traviaso. I am Raul Traviaso. I live at 1037 West Royal Palm Road. As I could not attend this evening's meeting, I asked Brianne to read my commendation regarding the Sugar Sand staff's outstanding performance during the charity pickleball tournament. Before Brianne reads it, I want to thank her, Melissa, and Commissioner Wright, and Commissioner Vogelsang for stopping by at the tournament. The players really appreciated it. Erin even got to see her husband and son play. Pretty sure that her son stole the show. It was great playing with all the grown-ups there. The email goes as follows: Dear Greg, on behalf of the Boca Raton Firefighter Paramedic Benevolent Fund, I wish to thank the staff at Sugar Sand Park Fieldhouse for going the extra mile during the annual charity indoor pickleball tournament on July 20th and 21st, 2022. Nearly $4,000 was raised and donated to the Forgotten Soldiers Outreach Inc. of Lake Worth Beach. Our 2-day premier indoor tournament featured 56 of the top local players and was supported by dozens of volunteers and attended by many spectators. In great part, the charity event was a huge success due to the diligence and dedication by the staff at Fieldhouse. It's fitting to recognize Brad Blackman, Thomas Hayes, Ben Soto, and last but not least, athletic supervisor Kevin Edmond. We'd also like to especially thank Jim Henniger, acting athletic programs administrator, for his outstanding supervision and valuable experience in planning for the event. His leadership was valuable and greatly appreciated. I personally received numerous glowing comments from players and volunteers expressing how uniquely helpful and pleasant the staff was. Again, kudos to the staff for their support and assistance, which resulted in a successful and smooth running tournament. At the end of the day, it's the Forgotten Soldiers that benefited from the staff's hard work. Sincerely, Raul Traviaso, Tournament Director.
Thank you, Brianne. Raul's always been a dedicated pickleball aficionado, including Melissa, and I'm so glad that we were successful in holding that tournament over there and to the benefit of the firefighters. Last call for a public request. Is there anybody online?
No.
Hearing no one online and no one coming forward, this part of the meeting is now closed. Commissioners, in your packet are the minutes of a previous board meeting held July the 18th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Nikki, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Yes.
Commissioners, the next order of business is regular business. First item is the YMCA program request, and I'll turn this over to our executive director.
Commissioners, last week I had the opportunity to meet with Brian Hunt, who's the director of the YMCA here in Boca Raton, and we discussed the summer camp program that was held at Patrick Park Community Center, the James Rutherford Community Center. Some people know it. They had a really successful program this summer, and it was a great chance, and a lot of the parents enjoyed it. Knowing that the kids were at the park all day, and the kids, of course, loved being at Patrick because it's a fun place to be, lots of stuff happening. We talked, the agreement that we have is a year-long agreement that it just specifically outlines summer camp programs. So some future programming that we discussed were some of their programs that have reached capacity at their facility. They like to do some overflow programs. Some of those we're talking about indoor programs, nothing that uses any of the fields outdoors, but karate, some gymnastics programs, things like that, as well as winter break and spring break camps. And we want to go ahead and plan for next summer as well, having the YMCA out there again for summer camp. So another opportunity that we discussed that's out here and existing is the need for aftercare programs for schools. A lot of the schools are having a hard time staffing their after-school programs, which means limited capacity within the schools. So the YMCA is an extension of that. They have bus services. We have a new elementary school going down the street, as well as Calusa and some other schools there. So they also want to have somebody evaluated to see if it's a potential site for licensing for an aftercare program. So tonight, I'm just looking for approval tonight to negotiate an amendment to the existing YMCA agreement so that we can bring that back to this board at a future meeting.
Commissioners?
Well, I think it's a good idea to proceed with discussions and find out where you can best utilize everything. So the negotiated agreement is for programming. And I'd invite them for a proposal for aftercare, recognizing there's a need for it, but that's a separate topic.
Susan?
There was an article on the news about the need for aftercare, and it's critical for some of these parents who are working and they have nowhere for their kids after school. Brianne did mention something about the restroom situation over there. What would you explain that to everyone, please?
One of the drawbacks to the facility is that with licensing, you have to have a certain number of restrooms for a certain head count. So to make the head count work for the YMCA, the restrooms aren't enough. So they would have to have that evaluated and look at alternatives if trailers and things like that can go out there to make it fit. But that's something that their licensing person would evaluate and see what the possibilities are, which we could come back and discuss.
Would that expense be at the YMCA's expense?
That's all stuff we'd have to talk about. We'll have to see where that goes.
Would those restroom facilities, the additional facilities, be available to other users of factory?
I don't know how it would work licensing wise if that's a factor. So that's all stuff that would have to be looked at and to see if it's even an option.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Brianne to talk to the YMCA about amending the current agreement.
Second.
Commissioners, any further discussion? Hearing none, Nikki, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelson.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item on the agenda is a budget discussion. And I believe Brianne in the cover memo said we're going to confine our discussion today to the city's CIP projects. And Brianne, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rollins. Yes, tonight we're going to discuss the city CIP requests included in your agenda packets, which is exhibit Schedule A, excuse me. So I also real quickly just want to recognize that our Acting Director of Recreation Services, Mr. Greg Stevens, is here. I've had the opportunity, Melissa and I have met with him and his staff several times to talk about the budget. There was a leadership change when around the time we got our budget books. So Greg has done a great job. We've already taken some items out of the budget and reduced some of the costs, and he's been really helpful at explaining some of the things that changed and how some of the positions have shifted around. So I just want to recognize Greg is here. Obviously, I'm sure he's very happy to answer any questions about some of the CIP projects. But I also want to thank him for jumping right in there and helping us get through this. So on Schedule A in your agenda packets on page 11, you see a list of projects. These projects include the tower at Bumble Limbo, as well as some other improvements to the facility. Includes the beach renourishment project that was originally anticipated to be done this year, but they put it off a year, working on some funding. So that's covered in our beach renourishment sinking fund, and we're also obligated on that one. I don't need a vote necessarily tonight, but I really wanted to open up the discussion to see if there's any comments or concerns, because we're working on putting together a draft budget for the next meeting that will encompass our CIP, the city CIP, and the operation and maintenance of everything. So just wanted to get a feel for where everybody is on each of these projects. And I am recommending that we budget for these projects and continue moving forward and working with Greg and his staff on reductions and things as the year goes on.
Brianne, you don't need a motion on this. You just need to have commissioners weigh in on the
That's
discussion?
it, yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'll start with Mrs. Vogelsang.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Greg, I do have a question about the Spanish River maintenance, that $165,000. Is that for design?
We may as well just stay up there.
Good evening, Commissioners. Greg Stevens, Acting Director for Recreation Services of the city. And yes, that would be for preliminary design for the Spanish River maintenance facility.
I thought there was a design out there.
We're working on, well, for the County only facility there is Spanish River Park. We're still working on the design for that site.
Okay, I just, when we came out there, I mean, this has been a number of years ago to look at the facility. I thought there was something already in place.
We were working on a report at that time for some conceptual ideas of what could go there, but right now that's where things have been. It's more conceptual, what we might be able to build and where. But at this time, we've not actually had any kind of direct plans put together for the project.
Thank you, Greg.
Commissioner Ernst.
Well, Greg, I got a series of questions for you. First of all, going back to Spanish River, I think it was roughly a year or 2 years ago, Aaron and I both saw the facilities at different times and met with you, and I want to thank you for that. Totally agree with you, Spanish River needs improvement, and so totally need to move forward, and we'll figure it out, but it's definitely something that needs to move forward out there to be sustainable for the future. Secondly, I want to thank you for the CIP update that was provided in our last agenda pack. You know, one of my pet peeves, I guess, is just general communication and trying to get communication just to understand what's going on in different things. And I think you've covered a lot of territory in just talking with Brianne and giving us a list of all the projects that are in recreation. And I think this board has unanimously taken recreation to its heart and soul as our #1 priority, as I know both you and Brianne have that passion for our residents and making sure things are held at the highest standard. So I'm very thankful for your role in the acting role, and I see a lot of opportunity to continue regardless of what comes, but I think you're all on the right steps with it. As far as the budget items go, you know, it seems like there's a lot of things out there that will come along. One thing I would say is just looking at the beaches, the light tower projects. From my assessment, looking at from the ground, I don't know if they're going to make it another year, so you might want to consider stepping it up some way, somehow sooner. You know, I had the opportunity to visit with the lifeguard for different reasons stuff, and I was a little bit surprised at how bad condition those, at least the stand I was at, I think it was station 3 or 4. It was just kind of like, I don't think they're even going to make it. So you may want to consider moving it up sooner if they can. And I think we should definitely participate in all of these projects. So other than that, I don't really have anything. So thank you.
Commissioner Rizzo.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is a bookkeeping question. For the chillers at Sugar Sand, shouldn't that be a district capital expense?
No, that was one that's part of, those are some of the projects, that's what I sent that email about. Those are some of the projects that are really maintenance projects, and there was some confusion about who would run those, so we have those in our CIP. We've taken it out of our CIP and put it back in the city, because the city is the one who maintains the chillers, and they oversee that in their facilities maintenance program, so it's best that they run that project, so that they're, as long as they're enforcing the warranty and maintaining it to the warranty standards, it makes the sense that they're the ones who run that project. So Greg actually clarified that one, and they put that back on their side to do.
And Greg, I just want to say congratulations, I think, in your new position. I look forward to working with you and seeing you at our meetings.
Brianne, we talked today about the fences there at Spanish River Fields. And is that only, did I miss that on this CIP list?
It's in here, it's with the, I know it was in their budget book, so it's in one of these lines. I'm trying to figure out which one it is.
Well, I do remember seeing it in the budget book, and it's not important if, you know, if it's in one of these line items.
I think it's in the operating capital projects.
Okay, all right. And I believe you're gonna have Melissa investigate the different construction. My compliments to you, Greg, for what you've done to help facilitate the budget process. You know, I appreciate one, having you come to our meetings, and I hope that you'll continue, because it's always helpful having immediate feedback from staff on different projects that we're engaged in. But I'm certainly satisfied with the CFP that's been proposed here by you that Rhiann's presented with us today. And are there any other questions or comments of Greg? Do we need a motion on this?
No, I feel like I have a good direction from everybody moving forward and craft the budget with these items included, so we'll do that.
Yeah, I would agree. It sounds like your executive director has consensus and general direction from the board. She'll take that direction and proceed.
Okay, wonderful. Greg, thank you very much for showing up. No pressure in the future. Just please come on by. We always enjoy having your presence here and having staff from the cities sitting on the meetings physically now that we're able to do that.
Sure, be glad to. If I may add, a long-term employee, very great deal of respect for the board and the district as a whole. Long career with the city, we've seen a lot of successes when the city and the district work well together. And I know we've had some great conversations and great meetings with both Rhiann and Melissa. We're looking to schedule regular meetings and to facilitate our communication process. So I do appreciate working with them as well.
Thank you very much. We do hope you'll come back soon. Thank you. That concludes the discussion on the budget discussion. The next item is the approval of payroll and invoices of Commissioner Ernst.
Yes. Mr. Ross, I'd like to propose approval of payroll and invoices in the amount of $2,465.60.61. Read that correctly.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion, commissioners? Any
Yeah.
questions? Yes, Steve.
You just said 2,465?
I think it's 460.
Yeah.
The amount is $2,460,560.61.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Nikki, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passed unanimously.
Yeah, for sure.
Greg, I don't know what I'd do without your help here. The next item is reports and discussion items. First up is the executive director report.
Thank you, Commissioner Rollins. Just a couple of items. We're working on a date in September for Miller Lake to come back and present the next version of the master plan. So keeping in mind that we have our first public hearing on September 6th, which is the Tuesday after the holiday, it'll likely be the September 19th meeting. But they'll be meeting with everybody individually as well ahead of time and working towards that goal. So they're ironing out some of the information from the last meeting and just working with a lot of ideas and parks that people had suggested, both public and on this board have suggested other parks and facilities. So they've been looking at a lot of those to put some of those things into the plan as well. Aaron and I are going to be at the next Parks and Recreation Board meeting in September to talk about the Boca Chica project and any other questions that they may have about the district projects. So we'll attend that meeting. I met with our grant writer from INREM Solutions, and we're working on FERDAP, which is the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program. We're working on an application for the Patrick Park Pickleball project. Part of that is you get points for certain things, and Patrick Park certainly has a lot of elements that give us a lot of points towards, which will help us, get recognized possibly for the grant money. One of those things is to have a public meeting, which is just myself and Melissa that host a public meeting. During the month of August, we have to pick a date and set a facility. We'll probably do it at Patrick Park and allow the public to look at the plans and give feedback and things like that. That gives us more points. So that's something you'll see coming up as well. But we're working on that application, which is due in August. So we're putting all that together pretty quickly. And we'll see what happens with that. And then the big excitement today was the Procure Park contest started. I was getting tongue-tied talking about it, but as part of the Niagara Bottling Company and the NRPA Foundation, we were selected as one of 10 projects to compete, to be one of 3 finalists to win $75,000 for our project. Ocean Strand is in the competition. Voting started today. I hope everybody has voted at least once today. You can vote every day with however many email addresses you have. We don't discriminate on the voting with this, so please vote and vote often. We've got cards, and Chuck is working on press releases, and he's pushing this out there. We're going to put it at all facilities, make sure all the rec services staff is aware of it, and they can share it on the different social media channels. So you're going to get more emails from me about it, and hopefully nobody gets tired of hearing about it, but we hope we can get enough votes to win. So, and if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. And that's my reports.
I do have a question. What other parks are involved in this? Do you know, or do they announce which parks?
Yeah, they are actually all listed on the website. Some of them are local as well. I know when Chuck and I sat in on a call, the city of Boynton Beach has one of their parks in it, and it was Chuck and I with about 10 people from the city of Boynton Beach, because they have a marketing department, and everybody was in on the meeting. So there's a lot of great projects out there, and there's a lot of great cities across the country competing. You can go on, if you go on the website, not just to the Ocean Strand, you can see all the projects and read about them, and there's a lot of good stuff happening, and there's a lot of great projects. So I, of course, wish everybody the best of luck, but I hope we win.
Did you give this information to Elliot so he can circulate it?
Yeah, we're gonna put it in the email blast, and we're also sending out a press release. It's already posted on our social media today, and we're gonna actually promote that a little bit too to get more views on it.
Thank you, Brianne. Any other questions for Brianne? Hearing none, District Council.
Oh, we all get together. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The council's office does not have anything to report this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioners, did you want to make a comment here?
I do.
Floor is yours.
I do, and I'm speaking up on behalf of Steve here too, just in case he wants to speak to it. I have 4 items that I want to touch base on, and most of them are kind of in progress, and I just want to wish him luck on it. And Greg gets the part of a lot of it. So the first and foremost is after the last meeting, I received an email from the Roar Hockey lead person identifying this. The concern in his email was that there were 3 prior occurrences and 4th occurrence with this car parked and burglarized. And so, normal course of business is, hey, don't leave your stuff in the car, but I don't want to blame the victim for the crime. I think we have to be cognizant of the environment we're in. And I can also say that in May, June, when I was in the park and I was walking with Melissa at we talked to some Little League folks and asked, well, what can we do? And that's my number one question, what can we do for you? And they said, well, you can stop the car break-ins. So to me, the car break-ins I only have anecdotal evidence that there's something going on. The email from the Roar Hockey folks is Sugar Sand is actively targeted. Do something about it. Good news is that I did receive a call from, I forwarded the email I guess Thursday and last week, and started getting some responses on it. And a gentleman from the police office called me late afternoon today, and I was not able to take his call. But I do think the city has certainly got the attention on it, and they're going to work on it. But what I would ask us to do is cognizant of the growing environment that we're in all locations. I really think that we should ask our staff to work with the city to do a complete assessment of each of the parks from a security perspective, and security perspective in many things in mind, from an active shooter to petty crime to different things, and ask ourselves, what are we doing and what can we do better? And do a survey of the teams that are there on a regular basis and ask them. But to me, that's all stuff that is, handled. The city is our administrator of these things, so we need to let them, between Greg and Brianne, have some time to do it. But I do think we should consider an overall continuation of surveying of our residents, of just about recreation and fields, and we have to have a plan on it. Miller Lake, I think, did a good job of their survey. Somehow a continuation of that on an annual basis to budget for it. So what I'm trying to get to is get not anecdotal evidence, but get real data to make decisions. And so I think that can happen. It's just a matter of, we don't want too much data. We just want the right data. And that's something that we'll have to take some time on. In the meantime, I'd like to be supportive of the city staff and the police. If there's anything they need, you know, do they need extra roving patrols from a third party? Let's get it. You know, if they need something, we want to open it up to make sure no family should go to a park and come back to their car broken in. And I don't care if they leave a pot of gold in the car. It just doesn't, it's not right, you know, so we want to make sure that our parks are sealed nice and tight. Maybe that means locking some of the gates up earlier. You know, I don't know the times of these things. I think the people involved, particularly the city, the police, and the victims, know best. And they'll come through with a better solution. But I want to highlight for this committee that we may need to fund it. And so give that consideration when we come to this budget process. And don't be afraid, Greg, to ask us for more money, because I want to make sure our parks are extremely safe. And so whatever we can do, we need to help solve that one. Second item is the
Greg, why don't, since you made such a wonderful argument for that, make sure that staff is follow through with your security analysis. I think it'd be appropriate now to have that discussion. We did this probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
The same thing with the Boca Police, and I don't know that we necessarily need to make a motion, but I think that you know, unless Jake disagrees, we should encourage staff to engage with the local PD to do a security analysis. Is that something that we can make that comment, Jake, or we need to put that in form of a motion?
No, if there's consensus to provide direction to your executive director, I don't have any problem with that.
So if there's anyone that disagrees with that, otherwise, staff has been put on notice to move forward with that. And I have to tell you is that I live in a neighborhood where there's one road in, one road out, but you won't believe the number of individuals at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning come by pulling door handles on cars. I don't know how you stop that unless you're along with Mr. Smith and Wesson out there. But I think it's good. I agree that we definitely should make sure that our parks are secure, not only from burglars, but from any other safety issues that we might discover in the process of the survey.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add to that is I too live in the neighborhood Parkside, which is adjacent to Sugar Sand Park. And I can, after living there for 22 years, I would say the past couple of years, we've seen an uptick. So I think it's not, unusual. I mean, we're all victims of, whatever happens, pulling door handles. Well, we closed our back gates, which are back to, I think it's like midnight or 1 o'clock, something like that. For sure, 1 o'clock. Midnight or 10 o'clock, the back gates no longer you can get out. But we slowly limited the access tighter and tighter. So I'll just leave it to the city and Brianne to kind of work on it. It may take a while, that's okay, but I think it should be a priority for us. The second item I wanted to touch base on was the carousel. The carousel has been closed since when? Brianne?
January, I think we closed it.
So
So it's
January, we closed it,
Yeah.
and it used to be open a frequency of how often?
It was open every day.
Every day for how long?
I think it was 10 to 5 or something, short window of time during the day and then the weekends. 10 to 5.
Okay, so but I guess I'm going to, we're reopening it. What's that?
Nothing.
But I was gonna say, as we reopen it, I do agree with the idea of lower hours, just because we found that, maybe we were running it too much, with too few people. And therefore it needs maintenance, all those kind of mechanical things work on hours.
Yes.
And they wear out on hours. So if you leave the thing running day and night, guess what? It's half its life is gone. So I hope that, there's always a little, understanding of who's maintaining it, what's doing with it, but we just did a lot of refurbishment on it. So I turned to you, Greg, to say, I hope to gosh, someone made good records of what we just bought, hundreds of thousands of dollars of parts. And now we can get that on some level of maintenance schedule at lower times, because it is, the community really loves it, and we lost 6 months. And so the goal is to extend the life for a longer period of time, and then publish the time, put out there, instead of us just saying, yeah, it's only, we're gonna feel like we wanna run it. Make it clear it only runs on Saturdays and Sundays, peak times. And so, or Fridays, whatever you wanna do, or days when there's no school. Whatever it is, let's be clear to clearly communicate to our residents what our expectations are with it when it's open, and that way there's no guessing. Because I got a lot of emails saying, or saw the, anecdotal emails saying, hey, the carousel's closed, when's it open? Or why was it open? When, and then when I went by there, and I lived by there for 20 years, and since it opened, it's like always running. So it's no surprise that it broke down. Let's just see if we can get a plan going forward as you go into future with it. I'm gonna go to my third item. So third item, Brianne shared with the group an interlocal agreement with the school district, and there are 2 of them in there. I was able to review both of them, and I would tell you that I thought the Palm Springs one was pretty good. And it's basically a set window saying they're going to share times on things. This is really a tri-party agreement, so Greg, it comes back to you if it's even usable, so we don't want to, we want to support recreation within the city, and that's residents and non-residents, but for the most part, we're focused on residents. And so we know that we have soccer fields that are in good shape and then ones that aren't. And thank you to our representative of the school district, Rick Barberry. We have 3 brand new schools, elementary, middle, but my understanding is they're kind of, skipping on the recreation side of things. So, the reason we're doing this agreement is to kind of look at how we can help. I don't know what that is. I don't know how that's going to be, but I can tell you that, for my kids, Spanish River High School's fields are deplorable. And that's one of the fields that we should all work on. I don't think the school district wants to put any more money in Boca because they got to build out other facilities all around this county. And it's a very large county, and we got the top 3 schools. So we did really well, but now I think we need to complete the puzzle and make sure there's a plan with recreation. So I'm looking for the school district, but things that the city can use too. So it's really all 3 of us kind of agreeing. But that agreement that was provided to us initially is a draft file. I encourage everyone to take another look at it if you haven't. But generally speaking, it seemed like it was pretty good, and that way the principals can't kind of tighten the reins on you and say, no, I don't want to do it. But there's some outs, so we got to be flexible and all that. So I would encourage you to continue on with whatever negotiations are, no motion or anything like that. Any thoughts, Brianne?
Greg and I are going to meet to discuss like how it impacts scheduling, and I gave him a copy of both of them, so he'll look at them with his staff and athletics and take it and just make some notes. And then I talked to Chris Garrison. Once we get all the notes, we'll present it to you guys. You guys can make your comments and discussions, and if you want to move forward with it, we'll ask them to go from there.
Okay. Keep in mind, the intent is a framework with some level of investment later that we both ever can use.
I will say the school district is more interested in that future development.
That's okay, that's the carrot. So the last item was just on the budget items, and I thought and I know you covered budget, you covered the topics here with CIP, but I'd be remiss if I didn't want to share 2 thoughts. Number one, admission at Gumbo Limbo. My understanding, was that it used to be pretty well set up that, the volunteers were asking for the $5 donation. They were always pretty good about it. And then, over the past year, I've heard mixed things that, we really can't ask for the $5, so we don't. It seems weird. And so, why not just have it on the city fee schedule, $5 admission to get in? It is, I believe, the number 3 tourist attraction. And if you want to control the volume in and out and everything, you charge for it, just like you do for parking at Meisner. Like we charge for the carousel, we charge for other things. I think it's a nominal donation. And you might as well just make it part of the deal. And if there's anyone who can't pay for it for whatever reason, we can figure out a policy or process to supplement it, you know, but right now, this board is totally on the hook for everything at Gumbo Limbo. And I think we should ask for something for it, so. Because the friends are kind of doing their own thing, and I think let them do their own thing, so that's fine. The second thing I want to mention for budget items is the inline rink. It was, the proposal was that I suggested a while back was just put a shade over it, you know, some kind of, you know, shade. And our favorite pickleball player came back to me with pictures of shaded courts of pickleball. And look, my thought on it was inline. I care about inline. I think it's a good thing to do. It seems simple to do. They were the ones who asked for it, so I supported it. But it's really about all of these things: the basketball courts, the pickleball courts. I mean, I spent Saturday from 7 a.m. till 4 o'clock up in Stewart at the sailfish swim tournament, and it was hot, and I melt in the sun. And even with the tents and the shades and all that, you cannot have enough shade anywhere. And I think it's just part of our overall environment, you know. So the idea of these covering the inline rink is just a starting point. It really, the pictures that Raul sent of pickleball, he showed several different where at least half the places were covered. That's what we need to do. So part of Patch Reef's pickleball, I for sure would make at least half of those things covered. That's a good idea. And he showed 3 or 4 pictures of things, and if you could pass those to everyone, yeah, that would be great. But that's the concept, and it's not about just the inline, you know, roller hockey. It's really resident or non-resident. It's about covering it and getting more use out of it, because I believe that you will be able to put drop-down basketball courts. We could do more use with what we already have, with a minimal investment as opposed to building a field house. And to me, it's a starting point to see if it works there. Can we make it work over at Patch Reef? Can we make it work on the pickleball at Patch Reef, the basketball courts, anywhere we go? And for sure out at Ocean Strand, whenever we get there, we need to put some kind of shelter. And I think it's a good idea to have a shelter that has, it's a starting point, but it says, whatever that design is, it should be well thought out so it can be used anywhere. So that's it.
Sure, that's it.
Yeah, for sure.
I just like I'll say the comments so everybody's done. Mr. Eagle.
I almost forgot what I had to say.
Sorry.
A couple of things. First, with regard to what you brought up about security, an anecdote about what happened in our development. We were having a problem with break-ins into units and into cars, and we put in a closed-circuit TV system, and we put up signs notifying people that, yeah, hi, you know, when you walk in, come into our development, smile, you're on a security camera. And it all but eliminated the problem. And maybe I shouldn't say that, all but eliminated, but that's about where we stand right now. So it's something we might want to consider, along with maybe enhanced park ranger patrols in the parking lots, which also might help. It doesn't necessarily have to be a police presence, but somebody with a walkie-talkie can be effective as well. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a problem. If we allow it to fester, it could become a major issue. I'd also like to go back to something that we talked about at the last meeting about talking to city council about whether or not they would like golf at Ocean Breeze. And the responses that we got, well, let's see the plan first, which to me is kind of a vague answer. So maybe we should ask the members of council, especially the ones that will be there in 2023, that is currently serving, what they would like to see without mentioning golf, and let them fill in the blank. I'll get a clearer picture. And, maybe it'll give them a greater sense of participation. And one last thing about coverings, you have to be very careful with that because a lot of times coverings limit circulation if you have high intensity events taking place. You lose some of the oxygen because of the covering, and it actually becomes warmer instead of cooler. So that's something we would have to keep in mind in the design of these facilities. I'm trying to keep up with you, Greg. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Vogelzang.
I don't want to follow that. I would like to know if you could figure out from the reports, from the ranger reports or the PD reports, where these break-ins are typically happening. Is it one specific area of the park, or is it everywhere? I did contact John Badalaro. Is he still your head park ranger?
Yes, chief.
Yeah, and he kind of put it back on me. He says, well, you ladies leave your purses in the car and that's what happens. Well, that's not the answer I want to hear. I want to see the same thing that these gentlemen do. The other thing, Craig, you brought up the entry fee. Where would the $5 go? Would that go directly to operations? Or would it go into, some other fund? Brianne, what do you think?
If there's an entry fee, I think it should probably, the funds the donation money currently goes to the funds that I know they're working on the agreement and Greg is working with the city admin on where they're at with that. So I think that's part of that discussion too, but if it's an entry fee, that was something that everybody agreed to, then I think it would come back to us, just like the camp programming or the program fees do.
Okay, I did attend the turtle release. It was very well attended. There was a mob and the kids really loved participating. John Holloway got them involved. He got them, talking. He was a great MC. It was hot that day, but nobody seemed to complain. He handled everything. He and Leanne and the staff did a great job out there. Just, really enjoy those events. I did go to the pickleball tournament. It was well attended by, I think Raul said they had 40 participants, but Colby Wright stole the show. He was amazing. He was fearless. I wouldn't get out there, Melissa, if my life depended on it. The carousel, Melissa, did you ever talk to Stanford List? Is he willing to look into doing maintenance on the carousel?
Yes, we had a discussion and I made him aware that when we go to do the RFP, that we would send him a copy of it. He's not a certified repairman, but he does have a contact that is, so I think he might talk to that person about it, but we have spoken, yes.
Okay. Thank you. My other request is everybody get out and vote on in this month. We all have a responsibility. We all have a right. And just hope everybody gets out and either votes by mail or goes to their polling places. So thank you, Commissioner Rollins.
Thank you, Commissioners. Quite a list of things that we've covered this evening. Security, I think, is a paramount interest to all of us, and I encourage staff to work with the both PD and recreation and make sure that we're doing the best job we can for our constituents. The school local agreements, I think I mentioned, I was very much in support of that, so long as it was an equal arrangement. Don't mind sprucing up the facilities if we get time, and I think that's what the issue comes down to with some of the sports programs. Although there may be an opportunity at in Spanish River, that's a really nice big campus. Maybe there's some things that we can do to help them out a little bit too. I think we've done a good job of covering. I like the fact that we have talked about the inline rink and the coverage on that, but I think aren't we looking at, then we have a WZA looking at a survey to see if where we could put a field house or if the piece of.
Yes. Yes, they're putting together a proposal of evaluating the design that was done several years ago for a second field house. Where if it could fit at Sugar St. Park, where would it go? And also ask them to evaluate Patrick Park as well, if that community center would go, just to give us a range of options and anticipated costs of those different developments for a second field house, so then we could go back and look at that and actually plan in the next 5 or 6 years when and where we'll do that, if that's something the board wants to do.
Thank you, Brianne. That concludes our reports and discussion items. Any future agenda items, Commissioner? Madam Chair. Executive Director. Who am I?
I have the YMCA amendment. We have the insurance RFPs that are still out there. I don't know if we'll have that for the next meeting, because the next meeting is a budget discussion. So the budget is definitely gonna be on there, and then we also have to discuss the employee healthcare program at the next meeting on top of that. So a number of things, but we'll work through it and see what the best ones are to talk about at the next meeting.
Commissioners, anyone have anything that they'd like to put on future agenda items? Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Ernst?
I would put the school district's ILA. School district's ILA should be on there. I think the security update or whatever it'll be a long-term plan, but I do think you need to monitor it.
Mr. Vogelzang? Okay, at this point, Steve, I'm waiting for your recommendation.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call, please.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang.
Yes. All right.
By the time I get the hang of this meeting adjourned and I'm done. Thank you very much, meeting adjourned.